My name's Allison. I'm from Phillips Wharf Environmental Center. We have an environmental center down on Tillman Island, and we also do aquaculture. We farm our own oysters. So today we're going to talk about our nursery here at this station. Our nursery is just the area where, can I have your guys' attention please?
Yeah.
Here.
Okay.
So we are going to start off with the equipment that we use for our nursery. This is called a silo. Okay, pass this around, you can get an idea of what our silo consists of. It's just like a bucket, and our silos go into our upwellers. And our upwellers consist of 12 silos. And on the bottom of each silo is this. It's just a mesh screen. There's different size holes for each mesh screen. We start out with the smallest because we don't want the oyster larvae to go through and swim away. So our oyster larvae comes in a coffee filter just like this. And we get roughly 2 million oysters in our coffee filter. And we get 2 million because we want to make sure that we have enough to survive. We have about a 15% mortality rate, so that's why we get 2 million. But before we put the oyster larvae onto the screen, we put them into a bucket of warm and salty water. This is so that they can swim around freely, so we can easily distribute them onto our screens. But before we put them onto our screens, we use this called microculture. Do you guys know what microculture is? Ever heard of it? It looks like sand, right? But it's not. It's just ground up oyster shell. No. Yeah, this is just so they can settle onto it. Yeah. So.
It looks like sand or pepper.
Right. So it's important that we have this microculture because oyster larvae, when they settle, they need something to settle on that has calcium. They take that calcium out of wherever they settled and they take it and they make their own shell from it. So they need that to make their own shell, and we also put that down because we want them to settle individually. We don't want them to settle on top of one another because we want that individual oyster. It's easier for us to count them in the cage rather than count them in a cluster. It's easier for us to estimate how many oysters we have on our farm. So we put the microculture down, then we put the oyster larvae down. And we put our silos into an upweller, and they're in the upweller, but it's transformed into a downweller for 2 weeks. During these 2 weeks, we feed these guys like a liquid algae type of thing. They thrive with it, so it's, yeah. So we feed them liquid algae, and that's for 2 weeks. After those 2 weeks, we then put them into our upweller system. So when they're in the downweller, the water flow is going down, and guys, can I get your attention over here just real quick? And after the 2 weeks in the downweller with the water flow going down, like I said, they're in the upweller for 4 weeks. So now the water flow is going up. And we don't have to worry about feeding these guys for these 4 weeks because the water flow that we're getting now is from the bay itself. We have a pump in the bay that pumps water into our upweller, so we don't have to worry about feeding these guys for the 4 weeks that they're in this upweller. After that, the next 4 weeks they're in a different upweller, so it's the same thing going on. So it's 10 whole weeks that these guys are in our nursery growing. And within those 10 weeks, we have every single day we clean. It's very crucial. It's one of the most important parts of caring for our nursery. As you can see with this screen, it's not the cleanest thing in the world. You can see in the crevice on the outside here how there are barnacles that grow and just different things that grow on the outside here. Bacteria, sure, that's one of them.
Dust?
Not dust, since they're going to be in the water. But we get barnacles, we get mussels that grow. Since we're getting water straight from the bay itself, you don't really know what you're going to get you're going to get some larval forms of organisms. So they just come in and settle on. So every week we scrape them off because we don't want them taking the nutrients away from our baby oysters, basically. So cleaning the silos themselves is important, and also cleaning the oysters because they get this film over top of them. It's like silt and mud, and it's not okay for the oysters. So they're still covering. Thank you. They're still covering the oysters, and so we spray them down with the hose to get that silt off, because if they're covered, they're going to suffocate and die, right? And we don't want that to happen to our oysters. So cleaning them off every single day is important. And also with the silt layer, there's a lot of it. We're seeing more and more of it every single time that we clean these guys. And that's just due to the fresh water that we got. I don't know if you guys know about the Conelingo Dam, but it opened up this past year. And it brought down a lot of fresh water. And not only a lot of fresh water, it brought down a lot of pollution and trash. So, which isn't good for the farm, right? So, so after those 10 whole weeks of in our nursery, cleaning them every single day, these guys get up to about the size of a penny or a dime. So that's the size that they get up to. Does anybody have any questions about oysters, about...
I saw some kind of oyster that was about this giant.
Okay, yeah. Do you guys know the harvest size of an oyster? Like when you can take it out of the water and eat it? It's 3 inches. Yep, so that's the legal harvest size. So, do you guys eat oysters?
My parents did.
Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Well, also a little fun fact about oysters versus farmed oysters versus wild-caught oysters. Their shells are different. So, like I said, when we were cleaning the baby oysters, their shells are delicate. We don't want to break them, so that's why we sprinkle the water onto them and like kind of slush them around. As they grow up to adults, the shell is still delicate. It's still they still break easily compared to a wild-caught oyster. So, and when they're farmed, they can put that energy into creating a bigger body instead of putting the energy into creating a harder shell to protect themselves from predators. But
That's the best thing to do unless they just swallow the whole big shell.
right. So, I don't know. Have you guys ever been to an oyster farm before? No.
Last time I had oysters, I threw up.
Yeah, oysters aren't really.
I love them. Oh, I hate when they're delicious.
They're good.
Have you ever tried this? It's like slimy.
For this 10 weeks, I would just want to say the next step of them is to go into a flupsy. And a flupsy is just like this upweller that I showed you guys, but it's in the water. It's on a floating dock, so it's the same system. You can get to it by standing on the dock. And nope, this is just our upweller. And after the upweller stage, they go to a flupsy stage, which is a floating upweller.
I was like,
So
No.
you look at this like this.
Like this. So this is the top,
Oh, that's why I thought.
and this is where the water flow comes in. Yep. But so when they're in the flupsies, there's just a door that you can take up, and there's just baskets for the oysters to be in. The maintenance is really low on this. We try to clean them every single week, if not 2 weeks or 2 times a week. So, and also they get their nutrients from the water itself since they're in the water. And then after that, they grow until they're about 1 inch long in our flupsies, and then they go to our farm. And then from there, yeah. But, and there's no questions about oysters, about the nursery? Okay. Well,